Hey everybody, we're talking today about selective service in the draft and how not to volunteer. So let's get going. First of all, you have to understand that all war is a scam. Okay, all wars are a giant commercial transaction. ISIS is a creation of the CIA, Langley. I mean, everybody's talking about it. Jim, Willie, Paul Craig Roberts, they're all talking about it, okay? The war on terror is a war on you. That's one of my videos. Watch the video, okay? This is all a scam. False flag operations are everywhere. All of these attacks, Paris, everywhere can be shown that they're false flag operations. World War III is being orchestrated as part of the orchestrated subprime crisis. Watch the video called The Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3. These are all my videos, and they go through and explain the stuff that's going on. All wars are a satanic blood sacrifice. Okay, you have to understand that. There's no law that says that anybody has to register for selective service. PIG is an acronym, and it stands for Persons in Government Who Intend to Perjure their Oath. And there will be no law that says that anybody has to be drafted. Okay, this is all fear, false evidence appearing real. Okay, they're playing their game. They're pigs. They're Satanists. They're trying to get people to volunteer in to go and get their arms and legs blown off in a foreign country somewhere. This procedure takes away their plausible deniability. If you do not assert your rights, you lose them. If you do not want to participate, you do not have to leave the country. And that's an important point to make, is that you can just make it so they don't want to talk to you. Okay? Because again, all of this is for U.S. citizens. The selective service is for U.S. citizens or registered aliens. The draft, it will only be for U.S. citizens or registered aliens. I can tell you right now because I understand the law and how they make laws and what they put in them. I guarantee you, any law. If you want to know what a U.S. citizen is, watch my video playlist. Do you know who you are? And think about it. Do you really know who you are? What the law is saying, what the courts are saying. If you're forced to register because of a driver's license or a student loan, there are still alternatives, okay? So we're going to talk about first just not registering, okay? Of course, if you think you're a U.S. citizen, then you better get your butt down there and register. But I can show you that a U.S. citizen doesn't exist, okay? So that's how you volunteer, okay? If a foreign enemy ever comes to our shores, I'll be the first one in line for enlistment, but we have no duty to go to a foreign country to participate in a satanic blood sacrifice. If you're one of those guys that is gung-ho and wants to go in the military and wants to go and kick butt and take names, knock yourself out, go for it. I wish you all the best of luck with that. I hope you don't get your arms and legs blown off. I hope you don't come back in a body bag, but good luck with it. You know, all more power to you, you know. But you got to understand that what you're doing has nothing to do with fighting for freedom, okay? This video is directed at those who are getting railroaded into it and do not want to participate. This video is directed at those that know that post-traumatic stress disorder is not necessary, okay? That getting your hands and arms and legs amputated is not necessary. That people that joined the military volunteered. Okay, so this video is directed at those that do not want to play that game. Now, if it comes here to our shores, I'll be the first one in line. Okay, but it's all voluntary. You have to understand that, and we're going to talk about how they get you to volunteer. This is actually the old Selective Service registration form, and it actually talks about what a U.S. citizen is. This is the second page, and so we'll talk about who must register. You'll see that column there about who must register, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so we're going to go in there a little closer to that, and see what it says. With few exceptions, all male U.S. citizens and male immigrant aliens residing in the U.S. and its territories must register if they're 18 through 25. Refer to the chart below for specifics. So then you look at the yes and the no. Okay, and we're going to go through all of that stuff. And then we're going to talk about that highlighted portion down there at the bottom. Okay, and there's getting in a little closer to the highlighted portion. This is the text. Okay, and you're welcome to pause that video and go back and pause the video and read that stuff and confirm this, but this is the text of what's there. It says, all U.S. citizens born after December 31st, 1959, who are 18 but not yet 26 years old, except as noted below. And so then cadets at a Merchant Marine Academy, National Guardsmen and reservists not on active duty. These are all the people that are required to register, okay? I didn't even include the ones that are not required. It's immaterial. Delayed Entry Program enlistees, ROTC students, separatees from active military service, separated for any reason before age 26. Been rejected for enlistment for any reason before age 26. Civil Air Patrol members. Permanent resident aliens. Special seasonal agricultural workers. Refugee, parolee, and asylee aliens. Undocumented illegal aliens. Well, if you're undocumented, how are they going to know you're there? They're looking for volunteers. I mean, think about it, people. Dual national U.S. citizens, okay? And so now they're talking about people living in other countries. Handicapped physically or mentally able to function in the public with or without assistance. See, and so they even want, you know, I'm not going to say it, but I think you know what I'm thinking. Anyways, then at the bottom, remember that highlighted yellow stuff that I had there? It says residents of Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands, and Northern Mariana Islands are U.S. citizens. Okay, that's where they define what a U.S. citizen is. Okay, that's a correct definition of a U.S. citizen. And so again, I don't know. I live in Texas. Okay, and most people I know live in Texas or maybe Arizona or maybe Colorado, but those aren't listed there. Okay, those are not territories. So you got to understand that none of that applies to anybody. This is the new Selective Service registration form, okay, and it was new like about 2007 or 2008, so they might have even come out with another one. But this is the latest one that I got, okay, and so what we're going to look at, if you look here, is part 3, who must register. Okay, they don't want to tell you that U.S. citizens are Guam, American, Samoa, and Puerto Rico, and so they've made it a little bit more vague. They want to make it so that more people are going to volunteer in. So number 3, who must register, and we'll get in a little closer here, and let's go and look at the text. It says, male U.S. citizens and immigrants documented and undocumented residing in the U.S. and its territories must register at their age 18 through 25. Well, so then the U.S. is the District of Columbia and its territories, which is Guam, American, Samoa, and Puerto Rico. So that's still technically correct, okay? Again, do you know who you are, okay? So what is a U.S. citizen? So let's look in their codes. First of all, this is Title V, United States Code, Section 552AA2. The term individual means a citizen of the United States or an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. And then same section, paragraph 13, says the term federal personnel means officers and employees of the government of the United States, members of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. Okay, so what that paragraph 13 is saying basically is that anybody with a Social Security number is a government employee. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you have a Social Security number? Okay, and I can tell you that I don't. Okay, a Social Security number is actually a number for a cess decay trust, and we're going to talk about that. Include. Okay, so we're going to see now, we go back here, it says, it doesn't use the word include here. Well, it does, including survivor benefits. But in the next definitions or the next statutory citations, it does use the word include. So we need to know what the word include means, okay? Because these liars, okay, these Satanists, these bar member Satanists that make up this stuff, like to put stuff in there so that ignorant people think it says one thing when in fact it says something else. Okay, so we're going to look at the word include. Include, or the participial form thereof, is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. Okay, and that's Montello Salt versus U.S. Supreme Court. Okay, and then the American Dictionary of English Language, Noah Webster, 1828, include, to confine within, to hold, to contain, as the nut shell of a nut includes the kernel. A pearl is included in a shell. But in these senses more commonly used enclose, to comprise, to comprehend, to contain. Okay, so include is limiting. Okay, and then Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, page 763. Include, to confine within, hold as an enclosure, take in, attain, shut, contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace. When they use the word include, if there is nothing there that's not listed there, okay? When it says includes this and this and this, then that is all it is. Okay, you need to understand that. And then there's injustum generis, okay? And this is talking about the canon of construction when they're writing statutes. And it's a canon of construction that when a general word or phrase follows a list of specifics, the general word or phrase will be interpreted to include only items of the same type as those listed. For example, in the phrase horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, goats, or any other farm animal, the general language or any other farm animal, despite its seeming breadth, would probably be held to include only four-legged hoofed mammals typically found on farms, and thus would not include chickens. And so, again, that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition, at Justum Generis. So, now we're looking at Title I, United States Code, Section 1. It says the word person and whoever includes corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Okay, so obviously, pursuant to injustum generis and include, the word person and whoever is only for fictitious entities. Okay, that's it. It's only fictitious entities. Title 26, United States Code, Section 7701, which is the Internal Revenue Code. When used in this title, where not otherwise distinctly expressed or manifestly incompatible with the intent thereof. See, these liars like to throw all this stuff in there, confuse people. Anyways, person, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, and corporation. Okay, so again, an individual is a fictitious entity. And that's actually consistent with what the courts are saying too. Okay, and we're going to go into that right now. A U.S. citizen is a fictitious entity. By metaphysical refinement and examining the form of our government, it might be correctly said that there is no such thing as a citizen of the United States. A citizen of any one of the states of the Union is held to be called a citizen of the United States, although technically and abstractly there is no such thing. Okay, it's a fictitious entity. This is an act prescribing the form of enacting and resolving clauses of acts and resolutions of Congress and rules of construction, which was approved on February 25th, 1871. Okay, and so this is found, look it up, at 16, that's book 16, stat 431. That means page 431. And be it further enacted that in all acts hereinafter passed, the word person may extend and be applied to bodies, politic, and corporate. Okay, person means fictitious entity. Every taxpayer is assessed to a trust, having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. Okay, so think about it. A taxpayer, a social security number is the number for a taxpayer, and it's assessed to a trust. And then this is congressional record. June 13th, 1967. And let me stress here, somebody came up to me with this, and so I want to make sure that there's no confusion in this matter, because people, jump to conclusions and are so, hello, the lights are on, is anybody home? Anyways, a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust and constructive cestate trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. Now, that is a summary. Okay, I don't know if you've ever seen the congressional record, but it's talking about, this is a summary of what's on page 15,641 through 15,646. And if you've ever seen the congressional record, it is extremely small print, 3 columns on a page. The book is huge, and it's about like size 8 print, okay, or maybe smaller. And so this is a summary of what it says in those 5 pages. A person is a variety of entities other than human beings. That's Church of Scientology versus U.S. Department of Justice. Foreigners, not citizens. Okay, a person or the term may include labor organizations, partners, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. And then it goes on to say, scope and delineation of the term is necessary for determining those whom the 14th Amendment of the Constitution affords protection, since this amendment expressly applies to person. So they're talking about the 14th Amendment. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. And common usage of the term person does not include the sovereign, and statutes employing the word are normally construed to exclude it. Okay? A sovereign is not a person in the legal sense. So we, the people, are not a person. And that's what you need to understand. Okay? And I guarantee you that if you go and look at that statute about selective service, it says that all persons. Okay? It said on their brochure, it said U.S. citizens. And but a U.S. citizen's a person. And that's just their brochure. You need to go look at their statute. And I'll bet you it's not even a statute. I bet you it's a regulation, which means there's no law. And while the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon state citizenship. So there are actually 2 classes of citizens. The Constitution even talks about it. And originally, a U.S. citizen was derivative and dependent upon a state citizenship, and the 14th Amendment turned it upside down. Okay? The amendment reversed and annulled the original policy of the Constitution. Okay, well, how do you spell treason, people? Okay, that's exactly what they did. It's unconstitutional for them to do that. But it's been under martial law ever since the Civil War. So, when they have martial law, everything goes out the window. Watch my video, Martial Laws, here, okay? And it'll go through it. There is a clear distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment protects very few rights because it neither incorporates the Bill of Rights nor protects all rights of individual citizens. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. That's Jones versus Temmer, 1993. Okay, so this is something that's still in full force and effect, and the courts talk about it to this day. There is in our political system a government of each of the several states and a government of the United States. Each is distinct from the other and has citizens of its own. You can be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. A person who is a citizen of the United States is necessarily a citizen of the particular state in which he resides, but a person may be a citizen of a particular state and not a citizen of the United States. To hold otherwise would be to deny the state the highest exercise of its sovereignty, the right to declare who are its citizens. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. Both before and after the 14th Amendment to the Federal Constitution, it has not been necessary for a person to be a citizen of the U.S. in order to be a citizen of his state. There are two classes of citizens, citizens of the United States and of the state, and one may be a citizen of the former without being a citizen of the latter. The words people of the United States and citizens are synonymous terms and mean the same thing. They both describe the political body who, according to our Republican institutions, form the sovereignty and who hold the power and conduct the government through their representatives. They are what we familiarly call the sovereign people, and every citizen is one of this people and a constituent member of the sovereignty. The people are sovereign and are not bound by general words and statutes restrictive of prerogative, right, title, or interest unless expressly named. Acts of limitation do not bind the king or the people. The people have been ceded all the rights of the king, the former sovereign. At the Revolution, the sovereignty devolved on the people, and they are truly the sovereigns of the country. The citizens of America are equal as fellow citizens, joint tenants in the sovereignty. Okay, so they're talking about state citizens here. Not U.S. citizens. People of a state are entitled to all the rights which formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative. It will be admitted on all hands that all, with the exception of the powers granted to the states and the federal government through the constitutions, the people of the several states are unconditionally sovereign within their respective states. That's the U.S. Supreme Court. And so the point is that there's two classes of citizens, state citizens and federal citizens, and the federal government has control over federal citizens, but they have nothing to say about state citizens. The state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. Okay? They want you to volunteer in. Whereas the Supreme Court has stated clearly every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He's not bound by any institution formed by his fellow men without his consent. They want you to volunteer in, and they know that's exactly what's happening. The rights of the individuals are restricted only to the extent that they've been voluntarily surrendered by the citizenship to the agencies of government. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. State citizenship is a vested substantial property right, and the state has no power to divest or impair these rights. Taxpayers are not state citizens. So let's go back to that first one, Tyning versus New Jersey, that's U.S. Supreme Court. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. Okay, so think about that. Okay, that means that no statute applies to state citizens. That's true. Okay, no statute applies to state citizens. That includes regulations too. If a statute doesn't apply, certainly a regulation doesn't apply. And the courts have nothing to say to state citizens. If you set it up properly, they don't want to talk to you. I've been to the Supreme Court 4 times, and every time I told them you have no right to turn this case away and you have no right to charge a fee. And every time they accepted the case and there was no fee, and every time the U.S. Department of so-called Justice, which is what I called them in the case, waived their right to respond, they have nothing to say to state citizens. And every time after that happened, the Supreme Court dismissed the case because there's nothing to say. Okay, they have no power to impair my rights, and they know it. The sovereignty of a state does not reside in the persons who fill the different departments of its government, but people from whom the government emanated, and they may change it at their discretion. Sovereignty then in this country abides with the constituency and not with the agent, and this remark is true both in reference to the federal and state government. No action can be taken against a sovereign in the non-constitutional courts of either the United States or the state courts, and any such action is considered a crime of barratry. Barratry is an offense at common law. So they have no authority to bring an action against you. And if you set it up right, what I would do, quite frankly, if you're not interested in doing this kind of stuff, is send a notice and demand. There's bureaucrats everywhere in every locality that take care of the Selective Service program, and you send them a notice and demand, and I guarantee you that they won't want to talk to you. They won't. You won't be selected. Damn the bad luck. The privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the First 8 Amendments to the powers to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. That's right. U.S. citizens have no rights. U.S. citizens are involved in interstate commerce. U.S. citizens are slaves. U.S. citizens are property. The only absolute and unqualified right of a U.S. citizen is the residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. So a U.S. citizen is property. Okay, it's a fictitious entity. Okay, corporations have no rights, and that's why corporations have no rights. Citizenship is a political status and may be defined and privilege limited by Congress. Okay, a U.S. citizen has only rights that are defined by Congress, okay? And so I wouldn't say they have no rights. I mean, this U.S. versus Volunter says that the only right they have is to live within the territorial boundaries of the United States. But actually, there are other rights, but they're all granted by Congress, and it's in the federal statutes. But again, if you want to play that game, I don't. I want nothing to do with that. That's a slave. I'm not interested in going and begging before they're whores. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. That's U.S. Supreme Court. Hold it now. Oh, that's the U.S. versus Anthony actually went to the Supreme Court, but that was the lower court that made that statement. A U.S. citizen is not entitled to an Article III court. Did you know that? But instead gets an Article I court with a plenary military dictatorship jurisdiction. And Article I, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution for the United States of America as defined and reinstated in National Mutual Insurance Company of District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. Which further states that citizens of the District of Columbia are not embraced by the judicial power under Article 3 of the Constitution for the United States of America. The same statement is held in Hepburn versus Dundas. In 1804, the Supreme Court, through Chief Justice Marshall, held that a citizen of the District of Columbia was not a citizen of a state. There are many court cases that talk about this. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington, District of Columbia, and through their plenary power. Okay, that's military dictatorship, people. Nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. That's U.S. Supreme Court. For more information, watch my Do You Know Who You Are playlist. Okay? Bottom line. Your citizenship is determined by what you tell them as well as the evidence you provide. Okay? It's what you say and tell them and show them. I know people who get called for jury duty and tell them that they're not a U.S. citizen, and they kick them out of there so fast their head spins. There is a Selective Service bureaucrat in every locality. If you serve them with a notice and demand that brings up these issues, I'll bet you never get selected. And if you want to send me an email, I'll be happy to send you a template that you can use. I mean, I have some that are like 35 pages. They're designed for traffic stuff, but the arguments are all basically the same. No matter what kind of issue you have, it's all basically the same. Now, of course, you'd want to thin it down. Usually, I would probably want to get it down to around 10 pages, because at some point, they're not even going to read it. But yeah, You want to thin it down, I can send you one that's got lots of court citations to talk about this. If you are in one of those selected group, then all is not lost. And I'll tell you about a friend of mine named Bill. And he was in ROTC during the Vietnam War. That's Reserve Officer Training Corps. Okay, so the ROTC paid for his college. Yeah. And this was during the Vietnam War. And he was telling me this story. And this is very interesting. And so they still have to get you to consent, okay? They have to get you to sign that contract. And what happened was he finished his ROTC. They paid for his college. And so then they had this big party. And they invited everybody over to had free donuts and coffee, and they had all these contracts all ready to go. And so he showed up at this party and met with everybody and chatted everybody up and had some of their free coffee and donuts and sat there and watched everybody do that. And after a while, he just left. And then they sent him an invitation to another one. So he showed up at that one too. And chatted everybody up, ate some of their free donuts and coffee, and they had all these contracts there, and they confronted him, and he said, well, I'm still thinking about it. And he left, and it was no big deal. And ultimately, they quit even asking him. Okay? And so what happened is he's telling me a story when he actually went over to Vietnam as a civilian, okay? And I guarantee you that they treat civilians way better than they do people in the military, even officers, okay? And he was in the ROTC, so that would have meant he would have been an officer. But, he never did sign up, okay, even after they paid for his college. And anyway, so he went over to Vietnam. And one of his buddies that he was in ROTC with was an intelligence officer, was in military intelligence. And this intelligence officer, he goes over to Vietnam, and he's in his nice hotel and got his first class airfare and all that stuff going back and forth. And anyway, so he's talking. He meets this intelligence officer, and he meets him for lunch, and they're talking. And he says to him, so you get lots of intelligence about the enemy? And the intelligence officers, yeah, I do get some of that. and then he said, but what his real job was people that did not want to fight, okay? He'd get them a job behind the lines as a cook or something, okay? So the bottom line is that even if you sign up and you don't want to fight, you don't have to. And so just remember, okay, well, first of all, I'd never sign their contract. Okay, I'd give them the runaround, and after he did it after he got his college paid for. So first of all, I'd never sign the contract, and they have to get you to sign that contract. Okay, and that contract, every paragraph is initial. I'm telling you, it's an ironclad contract. And so they have to get you to sign that contract, and you just don't sign, and so you just go and you show up and hi, how's it going, and just don't sign the contract. Anyway, so then and you just tell them I'm still thinking about it. Anyways, but even in a worst case scenario, if that happens, you just tell them I'm not going to fight. And they'll find you something to do that you won't be in the front lines. So anyways, the important thing to understand is they still have to get your consent no matter what. Never, ever, ever give up. It behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist invasions of it in the case of others, or their case may, by change of circumstances, become his own. If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chain set lightly upon you, and may our posterity forget that you are ever our countrymen. And that's Samuel Adams. When shall it be said in any country of the world, my poor are happy, neither ignorance or distress is to be found among them. My jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars, the aged are not in want, the taxes are not oppressive, the rational world is my friend, because I am friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast of its constitution and government. And we have nothing to boast. We have a bunch of criminals that have seized control of the government, and they're making war on foreign countries. You know, that's all going to come back on us, I guarantee you. And so, you know, we need to put a stop to it. But in the meanwhile, we have nothing to be proud of. Our jails are bulging at the seams. There's beggars everywhere, unemployed everywhere. The government statistics are lies. It's you know, we have nothing to be proud of. But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he's taken away from his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. And that's the reason, that's my motivation, is I want to be blameless against the blood and sins of this generation. And now that you've watched it, you know, it's up to you. I hope you're blameless too. And but it's up to you. I can't control what you do. And I would suggest that you either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. You're now a watchman, and you either got to go and circulate this far and wide, or make up your own videos. If you come up with some ideas, I mean, by all means, send them to me. Make a video, send it to me. I'll put it in my playlist. And because if it's relevant to my playlist, I mean, absolutely, I've got other people's videos in my playlists. Please send this to people that are 18 to 26. You know, my sons, I've got sons, and I've told them all of this, and I told their friends when they were in high school that if they ever had a problem with Selective Service, you know, let me know. I'll fix it for them, and I'll be happy to. I'll help them. Circulate this video far and wide. Okay, and so people that are young people and subject to the Selective Service, this is easy, and I'll send them free notice and demand, and they can manipulate it. They can send it back to me, and I'll review it, and you know, I do that stuff all the time. Okay, so anyways, if people want to go, then knock yourself out. Go for it. But for people that don't want to go, they don't have to. And they don't have to leave the country, and nothing changes, okay? What happens is all of a sudden you just don't get selected. It's amazing how that works. Other videos, Bankster Thieves, 1, 2, and 3, Churchianity series, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts, Bar Members, 1, 2, and 3, Unidroit, Martial Laws here. Watch that video. We've been under martial law for decades. Do-it-yourself traffic stops, de facto courts. All courts are ecclesiastical courts. It's all the Vatican. Do-it-yourself toll roads, jurisdiction. Upcoming events, upcoming videos. I'm going to be doing one on estoppel certificates and do-it-yourself habeas corpus and some other ones, but those are the only ones I can think of right now. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I've got YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for a donation. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but is an extremely less desirable alternative. And this is for all the Satanist revenue officers out there that think that I'm getting some privilege or benefit. I prefer gold or silver coin. You can put your privileges and benefits up your rectal orifice, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs. Federal Reserve notes, PayPal, guest checks, money orders. Send me an email for particulars. If you find this useful, then you need to pay it forward. If you don't know what pay it forward means, then watch the movie. Okay, there's a movie called Pay It Forward. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile, Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page is Sovereignty International. My private group is Sovereignty International. I've also got a private group at Yahoo and Google, and both of them are called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you... If you want to not participate in the Selective Service of the draft, then you have an answer here. It's up to you. Okay, if you don't assert your rights, you lose them. And I appreciate you taking the time, and thanks for watching, and have a real nice day.